It is nice to just be able to hang out for a second and lay amongst my friends. Party diva, party diva, party diva. This is what Leah and I were doing before. We're in a dancing mood today, so that's what you're gonna get.
Yeah, should we do a little freestyle?
Yeah, a little freestyle.
My grandma has one of these, but I think I need one
now
too.
Listen, don't compare your grandma now. I love grandma, no shade grandma.
Yeah, grandma's great.
But
if you met my grandma, you would say, yeah.
But you know, hot girls, they could have this too.
And hot grandmas.
And hot grandmas, yeah.
Wakey wakey, eggs and chili? Yes, you heard that correctly. I told Tanner I had a fun life.
That was a good one.
You know what? You guys would be
is
surprised how many times I've worked out in business casual clothing. It's sort of just something I do.
I love it.
It's a great way to introduce kids to a new story or maybe a different take on a story that they've heard before.
Yes.
You're encouraging reading while you're doing this as well.
Absolutely.
Happy birthday, dear Abby.
We have a special guest here, a fish. Do we know what kind this is?
That's a rainbow trout.
Rainbow trout. Well, he's beautiful. I love him. I'm going to keep holding him. My dad always says that if you have something nice to say, why keep it to yourself? And I like to live by that. Today could be that day when you send a card and put a smile on somebody's face. You know, there's always like a chief gingerbread builder and then somebody who's kind of like, I'll put on an M&M.
Eating the cookies.
Eating
the cookies.
You're right,
sure.
Kevin. That is me. That really
Where's
is
the
me.
roof?
So I want to talk a little bit about your background because you grew up with a green thumb, not a black thumb, a green
Yeah, well, I mean, I've killed a couple plants too, so I mean, we're like in that middle ground.
Thanks for joining us on
Yes.
Now and the Natty. Okay, I'll see you later. Most of us have heard of composting, but starting the process can be a little intimidating. Where do I get the supplies? Where do I drop it off? Are there worms involved? The secret answer is yes. Mary Dudley from the Civic Garden Center of Greater Cincinnati is here to tell us what we need to know. Also, are there pitchforks involved? I'm going to set this down because this is not what we're using right away, but thank you, Mary, for being here.
Thank you for having me. I love talking about compost.
I know. We have to get started with why should people think about composting or really start that process?
Composting is one of the easiest ways for every single person to start contributing to a greener future. And it really just starts with our food choices and what we are eating and making sure that when we have food, what we call waste, you know, maybe that banana peel, your watermelon rind, you know, where is that going? This is really valuable that we can use in the garden. We shouldn't just be throwing it in the trash.
Right. I do have a question. Could I put hot Cheetos in the compost or is it only for like natural foods?
We would prefer, the critters that are living in your compost would probably prefer less processed food.
Right.
But you know what? I'm a compost experimenter and I would say give it a try and let me know if they prefer Takis or hot Cheetos.
You know what? There we go. That's our next segment. We're going to be coming up with that. But tell me about the elements of a compost for somebody who's starting and just learning more about it for the first time.
Yeah, so I think that a lot of people when they're starting out make kind of a similar mistake. And so that is that their compost becomes anaerobic. The easiest ways for us to compost residentially or in our backyards or in our homes is with aerobic composting. And so that means that you need air to constantly be flowing through that system so that the critters in there are getting oxygen.
Sure.
And so you need to turn it with your wonderful turning fork.
Great.
Or you need to, you know, just fluff it up somehow. So you can't just let this organic waste kind of sit and do nothing, especially if you're doing it inside. The other thing is that you need a balance of carbon and nitrogen materials. You need more carbon than nitrogen. And so if you drink a lot of coffee and you're like, oh, I'm gonna compost these coffee grounds, that is a very wet, nitrogen-rich source. So you need to balance that out with some shredded paper or maybe some mulch or some shredded leaves, something else that will kind of soak up some of that moisture and make sure that there's structure for the air. So it all kind of circles back together.
So if you're trying to take some of these first steps and you don't know exactly what kind of balance you should have, is that something where we could come to you and ask for some help?
Yes, we would love that. Civic Garden Center holds classes. Hamilton County Resource also holds classes. So there's lots of opportunities for that education. And honestly, just pop me over an email. I could talk about compost all day.
And we'll get you that a little bit later. But I also want to get into the worms because we have some special friends here. Tell me how they play into this role of composting.
So this is beautiful finished vermicompost, and that's the word that we would use for compost that has been finished by worms. So literally it looked like something like this a couple of weeks ago, and now it looks like this. And so let's see if we can find, I'll let you get in there.
Oh yes, I get to dig in the
See if you
dirt.
can find some worms in there.
I found some beautiful worm babies. Hi. I'll put a couple on here.
Now these
All
are
right.
called red wigglers.
Ooh.
So they are a special type of composting worm that you can get, and they can live very comfortably in a 10-gallon Rubbermaid tote. And they will eat lots of your food scraps and turn out this amazing compost. And you're very brave to.
And if you're
smell it.
looking for pets, you could get some of them. And you were telling me too that they're a great solution if you're composting inside, because some people have fears about the smells, pests, making that work for them, maybe in a smaller living space.
Yeah, so I will say that my vermicompost does not absorb all of my personal compost. We
Okay.
eat a lot of veggies, but at the same time, it takes about a quarter of it. And what comes out of the worm castings, that we call it, are some antimicrobial, antifungal properties that you can apply to your houseplants so you have less houseplant pests. And it's just really, really healthy for your garden. So
know.
starting off with those little worms, there's probably a good 300 or 400 worms in this little
Oh my
bunch
goodness,
right
it's
here.
Worm City over here. Well, Mary, that's all we'll have time for today, but we want to get you that information so that you can get connected with Mary and everybody at the Civic Garden Center so you can learn a little bit more about composting, take those steps, ask those first questions so you can live a little bit more of a sustainable life. So thank you, Mary, so much, and thank you, Wormies, my new pets.